Imbibitor Lunae, Dunhang's true form, Daniel, whatever you want to call him, is the first banner character of 1.3. The main consensus right now is that despite him having 20 different names, Imbibitor Lunae is pretty strong. He hits so hard that he has functionally shot straight up on the tier list of practically everyone to be at the number 1 position. So if you see a content creator using the words broken or overpowered, this time it might not be an exaggeration. While his strength and power is significant, it creates quite a big problem moving forward. Before we discuss Imbibitor Lunae's impact on the game and its future, if you are interested in more Honkai style content, do consider subscribing to the channel. Power creep is something unavoidable and often common in any gacha game. As content progresses, newer characters either have to be introduced with more and increasingly unique mechanics, or they have to be progressively more powerful. Otherwise, you can't ensure that players would continue to pull for characters, especially for those who have summoned from the launch of the game. Take Genshin Impact as an example. The existence of characters like Xiangling, Bennett, and Xingqiu pretty much makes players think twice about summoning newer characters who are functionally similar because of how good those earlier characters inherently are. If Hoyoverse wants to incentivize summoning, they have to make the newer characters more interesting or better than these three, otherwise why would you summon for them? Of course, I'm not talking about other considerations here like lore, design, or something like that, but just the functionality of the characters itself. Let's take a look back at Imbibitor Lunae. If we look deeper into his kit, Imbibitor Lunae has so many things going on for him all at the same time. He has crazy damage multipliers going up almost as high as 800% when using Fulgurant Leap. He has at least 2 to 3 built-in self buffs that activate as you use him normally. He can hit several targets at the same time, giving him both single target and AoE flexibility. Each enhanced attack also hits multiple times, and on top of all of this, his element essentially locks down enemies, preventing them from doing anything, and that's not even touching or talking about his Eidolons. The biggest problem a character like Imbibitor Lunae creates is that because he's so extremely powerful, balancing becomes a nightmare. Making enemies more difficult to suit his damage output means that older characters would suffer, while if you maintain the enemy's current strength, Imbibitor Lunae trivializes content, making him practically a must-have. Making newer characters on par with Imbibitor Lunae and adjusting future enemies to then suit his scaling would introduce a whole set of other problems with ever-increasing power creep. It creates a situation where you need the newest character to clear the newest content. Just take the Swarm Infestation simulated universe as an example. The content is pretty tough, with propagation bugs being mostly weak to only quantum and imaginary elements, and have a self-replicating mechanic which favors more AoE. Both these things really suit Imbibitor Lunae specifically. I mean, there are other characters who would perform just as well here like Qingcui or Sila, but you can kinda see how much this new content benefits Dunhang's new kit. Because his kit is also loaded to the brim with so many things, if you ever wanted to create the next strong character, that new character would need to come with way more stuff built into their kit, creating a repeating cycle of increasingly overtuned characters. As I mentioned, there's a bunch of things built into Imbibitor Lunae's kit, and I can't imagine what the next new character would need to look like just to be better than him. Now, of course, Imbibitor Lunae isn't just strong without anything holding him back. The biggest thing that supposedly limits his ability to just clear the board each turn is his supposedly high SP consumption. In order to do that 800% damage I mentioned earlier, you need to be able to use his level 3 enhanced skill, which takes up 3 skill points. On paper, this might be tough to do, but in reality, it's really not the case. If you have skill point positive units like Pela, Tingyun, Silverwolf, Locha, or Japard, just to name a few, generating those 3 SP each turn is really not that hard. I don't consider myself as a really good player or anything, but I didn't really have problems using his maximum enhanced attack almost every turn. The caveat being you just have to plan a little bit ahead. Now, is this really that big of a problem, or am I just making this a bigger deal than it actually is? Generally speaking, if we look at specific content like the story or something like the Aurum Alley events, You don't need a nuker like Imbibitor Lunae. Even things like the Memories of Chaos, people have cleared it with base units long before Imbibitor Lunae was even a thing. But with the introduction of such a strong character, what I worry about is that the future content may become progressively more difficult and naturally force you to summon newer characters. While you can do the Swarm simulated universe with really any character, and even more so once you've unlocked a lot of the passive buffs, you can't really deny that having Imbibitor Lunae makes the whole process far easier and gets you into the content faster without needing to grind for those passives. It almost feels like a pay for convenience type situation, but a really well hidden one. On the other hand, this isn't a competitive game, and the goal is whether or not you can clear content. It doesn't matter how long it takes for you to get there. So in that vein, you would eventually be able to do so once your characters are sufficiently leveled, have the right traces, and are equipped with the best relics. Whether you have the time and patience to achieve that with the base or free units is a whole other story. I just worry for a future where character design becomes dictated by the idea that the new one must be stronger than the last one. The opposite is equally as worrying, as if they release such a strong character now but hold back on future ones to avoid power creep, you create a situation where if you have that really strong one, the rest of them becomes kinda meh. It's much like in Genshin Impact, when people look at the three I mentioned earlier, Bennett, Xiangling, and Xingqiu, you kinda hold back a little bit from summoning because you already have really good ones. I suppose a balance between these two would be the best outcome, where only occasionally does a completely broken character get released, but it isn't an easy balance to achieve. We'll have to see how future characters can circumvent this issue and if Hoyoverse are able to keep characters balanced and interesting at the same time. That brings this video to a close. Let me know in the comments what you think about power creep in Star Rail. If you found the video entertaining, do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and as usual, have a nice day.